To go or not to go? This is the question I'm going to help you answer today. Welcome back to Skyward, the podcast that brings you behind the scenes of the aviation aerospace industry. I'm your host, Pilot Mercedes, and today we are talking about the go or no-go decision and everything that entails.
The captain has turned on the seatbelt light. Please take your seat and fasten your seatbelts. Thank you.
Figuring out if it's right to go flying or if everything's adding up to a no-go decision is a lot more than you may first think. I'm going to go through a bunch of the steps and a bunch of the things that you should be thinking about in order to make this pivotal decision, whether you're going for a routine flight or if it's that very crucial checkride decision. I hope this helps you decide whether or not it's good for you to go or no go. Please stay to the end. I want you to get as much information as possible, so please stick with me. As a student pilot working toward your PPL, you've likely faced a METAR or TAF and wondered, can I fly this? Or is it a bad call? Today, we're covering pilot decision-making, go or no-go essentials for student pilots, or even a refresher for those private pilots, instrument pilots, and maybe even commercial pilots, you never know. And going into regulatory versus personal minimums, how experience levels shape decisions, regional weather challenges, aircraft capabilities, and the very critical I'm Safe checklist for personal assessment. This guide draws on general best practices to help you make safe, confident choices and prepare you for your check ride, just another routine flight. Let's begin with regulatory versus personal minimums, the cornerstone of safe weather decisions. Regulatory minimums, FAA or Transport Canada sets the legal baseline of what VFR Class G aerospace all the way up is. Personal minimums. These are based on your own safety buffers and tailored to your specific skill set and comfort. Coming right out of ground school, you often rely on just the minimums that the regulations give you, but you have to start to determine what your personal minimums are. The best practice is look at the regulations and then increase those minimums. So look at what the regulation minimums are and then increase it to the level that you think you're the most comfortable at, and then go with those minimums with your flight instructor and see if they're accurate. And then if they're not completely accurate, if you're actually more comfortable with lower minimums, then you can adjust it. But if you feel like those were actually too low and you want to raise them, then you're able to change according to what your actual minimums are. That's my suggestion to you. I didn't really set personal minimums for many years, and I kind of regret this. Thankfully, I never went into any unsafe weather situation, but it is a really good practice to start right away so that you're constantly checking yourself and where you're at. All right, students out there, write down your personal minimums right now while you're listening to this episode. Consider fatigue, solo versus dual flights. Review them after every flight, as I talked about with your flight instructor. This habit boosts safety in every area. You can't go wrong with analyzing yourself every time you go flying and seeing if your minimums go up or down as your skill level increases. Number 2, the I'm Safe checklist. If you haven't heard of this, you're going to be using it for the rest of your pilot career. And if you have heard of this, then this is just a refresher for you. Before weather even enters the picture, check yourself with the I'm Safe checklist. It's a must for go, no-go decisions, and I have a personal story for you in here. What is I'm Safe? I'm Safe stands for illness, medication, stress, alcohol, fatigue, and emotion. It's your personal readiness scan, and it's imperative that you do this before every flight. You can also use it throughout life, but it's really important when you're going flying. So 1 is illness. Even the slightest cold can impair your judgment and dull your senses, and it can just, in general, feel very uncomfortable. I personally went on a flight as a passenger from Norway back to North America, With a cold, I wasn't planning on doing this, but I had to get home, and it was the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. Granted, this is 5,000 feet up in the air in a pressurized cabin, but anything above the ground, if you're suffering on the ground, trust me, it's not going to get better in the air. Medication, over-the-counter drugs can sometimes impair judgment, so if you're ever in doubt, check with your AME and see if they're approved. Stress, work, or personal pressures can cloud your judgment. That can be from a death of a family member, a death of a friend, just simple life pressures from finances, anything that you can think of stress-related. This is the category it falls under. Alcohol, there is zero tolerance for drinking any alcohol near a flight. There's some different regulations between the FAA and Transport Canada, but they're fairly similar. If you're in doubt, 24 hours is your safest bet. 24 hours before flying. Fatigue, lack of sleep slows reactions. You don't want to be behind the wheel when you're too tired. You don't want to be in an airplane when you're too tired. So if you're too fatigued from lack of sleep or various things, don't go flying. / emotion. I said emotion earlier, but they do. Some textbooks have eating in there or emotion, or they have them together, eating / emotion, but it's all around this personal wellness. Skipping meals or emotional strain reduces sharpness. So again, back to, it's kind of connected to stressors, but emotions, if you're feeling too distraught, if you're feeling too angry, if you're feeling too much of a certain emotion that you can't think straight, you're not able to think about things logically, it might be a good time to reevaluate whether or not it's good for you to go into an airplane where you need to be thinking about everything with the highest precision possible. Why this matters. A pilot might feel fine, but miss subtle I'm safe red flags, leading to poor judgment calls. And I'll give you a personal story where I ended up failing a check ride because I made a poor I'm safe call. He didn't know this, but I failed my very last check ride, and that was my MEI check ride. For those of you who don't know, it's that instructor rating in the States. This is my very last check ride before becoming a flight instructor at that flight school. So I started with my CFII, going into my CFI, finishing off with my MEI. And a good friend of mine, we're still friends to this day, but I feel so bad that I ended up being one of his student failures for check rides. I did totally fine with the oral. The oral portion is where you present to your examiner. They ask you questions and they ask you to teach either a lesson or so on and so forth according to the regulations, ACS. I passed that, no problem. We went, and by that point it was late in the afternoon, and he asked me, do you want to go flying? The weather, I can't remember the complete conditions of the weather, but we did end up going flying. What I was not paying attention to was the fact that I had not eaten since early that morning. So I think we finished the oral around 1 p.m. and started either around 9, and I hadn't eaten since 7 in the morning. So the fact that I hadn't eaten since 7 in the morning, I hadn't even drank anything throughout that time either. So I went through all of that, and so I agreed to the flight. So that meant no break in between. I went from the oral exam to going to dispatch to get my designated aircraft for my check ride and going out and flying. If I had rescheduled my flight or even postponed it, I would have passed it. What ended up happening, we went up, I did a bunch of the maneuvers, totally fine, but then I got to this one maneuver. Again, I have done these maneuvers so many times. I could do them in my sleep. I had the same examiner for all of my check rides when I went down to the States, and he was fantastic. So I still swear by this guy. Very by the book, but very patient, and he was amazing. I tried to do the maneuver, and he stopped mid-maneuver, and he's like, this isn't it. And I agreed with him. I'm like, you're right, this isn't it. And he, to his merit, he tried to give me the opportunity to do it again. And my mind completely blanked out. I was like, I'm sorry. I can't remember it. It could not come to my memory at all. And it was definitely because I had not taken the time to feed myself, give myself water, take a rest, take a deep breath. Between these things, my brain was not set up to remember the things that were basically second nature, but I'd pushed myself so much that I set myself up for failure. So I ended up failing my MEI check ride because of that one maneuver. He let me do the rest of the maneuvers, which was very kind of him. There wasn't too much to finish up, if I remember correctly, but we did the rest. We went down. He told my instructor that unfortunately I failed, and we rescheduled for another check ride after I went up with my instructor. No problems at all. Rescheduled that check ride and we just did that maneuver together, and I passed it the second time. But if I had actually taken the time to assess myself in that moment rather than rushing to just want to get my MEI done that day, or even said, hey, can I have a half an hour to readjust, take a minute, any of these things would have been wise of me to do, and it would have showed him good airmanship. And I did not take that opportunity, and I ended up having a failure on my record. So learn from my failure. Use the I'm safe checklist, and don't be afraid to use it. You're not going to look stupid. You're going to look wise. Next, confidence and skill by pilot level. Your experience level shapes your decisions. Here's how your confidence and skill evolve. Plus, tips for new and returning pilots. I can speak as a returning pilot. Private pilot, PPL students, you usually come in with high enthusiasm, you're developing your skills, your confidence begins to grow, but sometimes confidence can outpace your ability, leading to mistakes in its legal, so let's go. A scenario could be a student ignoring a building cumulus on a solo cross-country requiring a diversion. A tip in this scenario would be check your weather and maybe reevaluate your minimums and use ForeFlight so that you can monitor the weather as you go. While you're a flight student, build your skills and your confidence and your proficiency with your flight instructors. Instrument-rated pilots. Flying in the clouds boosts your confidence like no other. With ILS and GPS now under your belt, it's a whole new world that you didn't have access to before. Then comes to the commercial pilots. Decisions are way more intuitive than they were as an instrument-rated pilot or private pilot and student pilot. But you can get into the external pressures of a flight instructor trying to get the flight in or trying to build your hours and possibly even going to shortcuts. So your best practice is following the checklist and reevaluating your minimums. Brief thoroughly and debrief every flight. New versus returning pilots. I have been both of these. It's really good for new student pilots to start with higher minimums and slowly work their way down rather than putting it too low and making an unnecessary risk. A possible scenario for you is that you start getting into marginal VFR and you actually don't feel comfortable with it the same way you were before. So maybe just start with VFR flying and slowly work your way up to IFR flying, or even get a flight instructor or someone who's IFR proficient to fly with you so that you get that confidence and experience back. Every so often I do an IPC check, instrument proficiency check, even if I don't need it, because I like that full refresher. Going into weather challenges. Now, if you only train in one area of the continent or country, you may only experience a certain type of weather. So, for example, flying in Florida, you're going to experience a lot of thunderstorms and very little snow. So you may be used to the every 20 minutes during the summer, You can see the morning will be kind of okay. You get into the afternoon, you know there's going to be some cumulus around somewhere. You're going to see a cumulus start to build up, and you can tell from the point that it starts up to 20 minutes later, you're going to have a full-blown thunderstorm. And then it's going to dissipate, and then the afternoon is going to be okay. That's your typical Florida cycle throughout the summer. Now, if you're going up north and into the winter, kind of like Canada, you're going to be dealing with snow and ice and things of that nature. So you have to really understand the topography around you and the weather systems that are typical to the area around you. And if you're unsure, you can talk to your local FBO, the local airport, even the local flight school, and see if they can bring any insight to that. I'm sure they would be able to help you. Next, you need to make sure that you understand your aircraft's capabilities. If you're flying in a jet, you're probably going to have more bells and whistles for dealing with ice and certain things like that versus a Cessna 172. If you're in doubt of whether or not your aircraft is fit for the type of weather that you're flying into, always check your POH. And if you're really in doubt and you can't find the answers that you need in your POH, go check with someone you know has more experience in this area. Check with the CFI. If you can't find an answer in the time frame that you're looking for, it's safer to be on the ground than to be caught in the air in a bad situation. To wrap up, the go, no-go decision takes a lot of thought process. These are all important things for you to understand and take into account with the go, no-go decision. While your regulatory minimums keep you legal, personal minimums and I'm safe keep you safe. Build your skills along with your confidence. Respect regional weather and know your aircraft's limitations. I hope this really helped you today. I ended up cutting out a lot of moments of just me coughing nonstop throughout this video, so I hope it was coherent enough and I hope you enjoyed it. And if I missed anything, please let me know in the comments, and if you found this really helpful, also let me know. I would really love to hear your feedback on this. If you have a friend going through flight school or another pilot who's dealt with these go, no-go decisions, I'd love it if you'd share it with someone else who might enjoy it too. Don't forget to give me a follow on all of your favorite social media spots to keep up with the latest updates and fun stuff. And hey, if you've got an awesome story from the aviation or aerospace world, or know someone who does, contact me at mercedes@skywardpodcast.com. I'd absolutely love to hear from you. A huge shout out to Skyward's first Patreon supporter, Alan. From the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for being part of this journey. I'm so excited for what the future holds. Your support truly means the world to me. Skyward is really close to my heart. It's all about diving into those real inspiring personal stories from those in the aviation and aerospace, and shining a light on the incredible careers and opportunities out there for anyone who's curious or dreaming big. I'd love for you to consider supporting Skyward over on Patreon. The link's right there in the description. It truly helps me keep these conversations going. Thanks again, everyone, for joining. Fly high, dream big, and I'll see you on the next episode.